Hi, Kathy Babbitt here, and I am the president of Babbitt's Inc. And at Babbitt's Inc. we have a line of baking mixes. So these are the baking mixes, and they have the instructions on the back. And one of the things that I wanted to talk to you about today is just why are baking mixes necessary? So there's a lot of, sometimes there's a really significant blend of things that make gluten-free baking possible. So I kind of wanted to go through the different flours that are on the market today, tell you a little bit about them and what their nutritional value is, because of course that's one of the problems we have with gluten-free is getting that nutritional value. So let's get started. This is almond flour. Almond is a nut. It is a tree nut. So if you have a tree nut allergy, this is not an option for you. Now there's no peanut allergy in here because it's not a peanut, it's a tree nut. So that's not an option for you. But you'll find almond flour a lot of times in your like your paleo or your keto diets where there are really low carbohydrates, grain-free diets, because it's not a grain, it's a nut. It's just a nut. But it makes really, I mean, it does really well. I don't use it. As you can see, this has actually never been opened because in my kitchen I don't use nut flours. I did a long time ago, but I don't anymore, and haven't in years, just because so many of my people have nut issues. So I don't, these are just for demonstration purposes for those of you that get product from me. Anyways, so it's high in protein. It's got a lot of vitamins and minerals in it, magnesium, calcium, potassium, vitamin E. And it's really useful in a lot of different recipes. And you can make bread with it, you can make crackers, you can make all kinds of stuff. Amaranth flour, which I don't have with me right now, it's an ancient grain. It's made from seeds, so it is grain-free, though they do call it an ancient grain. It is actually a seed. It contains more fiber and iron than wheat does, and it's a good source of calcium. It's high in protein, vitamin B, potassium, calcium, magnesium. I mean, it's just great flavor. It's a great choice for muffins, cookies, breads, pizza crust. I like it. And I use amaranth flour in baking. I've not really used it in cookies or cakes or anything like that, but I do use it in breads, you know, rolls, that kind of stuff. In my cookbook, there's the amaranth flour. I use it in waffle bread. So then we have brown rice flour. Now, brown rice flour is rice. It's made from rice. It's denser than white rice, and it contains more protein and fiber, though still not a whole bunch of protein and fiber. It's got 31 carbohydrates. It's only got 2 grams of fiber and 3 grams of protein, 1 gram of fat. So it doesn't have a lot of nutritional value. However, it is fantastic in gluten-free baking. Like I said, it's got a nutty flavor. It's a little heavier. But you use it in a combination with other flours. So in my baking mixes, white rice, brown rice, and cornstarch, or if someone has a problem with corn, I use tapioca. But so it's used in combination with other flours. And it's really great. It's really great. It's a really versatile product. Buckwheat flour. So I like buckwheat flour. Buckwheat flour is pretty great. Though it says wheat, it's not a wheat. It's actually made from a seed, and they grind those seeds. It's an herb. The seeds from an herb that's related to the rhubarb family, as a matter of fact. Highly nutritious. Protein, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, vitamin B, iron. So you got 1.2 milligrams of iron, you got 170 milligrams of potassium, a little bit of riboflavin, a little bit of thiamine, you got 1.8 niacin, you've got 10 milligrams of calcium in here, there's 21 grams of carbohydrates, there's 1 gram of fat. So total sugar is less than 1 gram of sugar. So you got 3 grams of fiber, 4 grams of protein. When buckwheat is pretty versatile flour, where what I like with it is when you put it with, like my pancake mix. I've got a pancake mix here. When you add it to the pancake mix, you just get a different product. It's going to be nutty. It's going to be dark. It's a dark, like for waffles and pancakes, they're going to be dark, and they're going to be nuttier in flavor. So that's your buckwheat flour. And I should say that no one is sponsoring this, so no one has asked me to promote their products. Primarily, I use 3: Arrowhead, Bob's Red Mill, and this sprouted flour. I really like this sprouted flour. So these are the 3 that I primarily use. There's some other brands here. Like the coconut flour I'm going to get out. The only reason why I have that is and the almond flours, I just bought them for demonstration purposes, just so I could show this is what the product looks like. But I don't use them. But that's the story there. So, okay. Chickpea flour. My example here for chickpea flour, what I use for chickpea flour is Bob's Red Mill all-purpose flour, all-purpose baking flour. And I got a funny story to tell you about this. So I'm a classical chef. I graduated culinary school in '94. And so when I found out I had to be gluten-free, we actually owned an Italian restaurant. And I'd been cooking on my climbing the ladder. I did a stint as pastry chef, loved it, absolutely loved it. So when I found out I had to be gluten-free, I thought, oh, this is not a big deal. I can handle this, not a problem. Not a problem at all. I'll figure this out. Well, that year I decided I want to make my cake. I want to make a cake for my birthday. We had been trying some of the cake mixes that were on the market, and they were just horrible. I mean, horrible. So I decided to make a scratch cake for my birthday. Well, at that time, Bob's Red Mill, on the front of their all-purpose flour, it said breads, cakes, cookies, whatever. It was, you know, like you could use for anything. So I bought it. I didn't read the ingredients. I had a chocolate bean cake for my birthday that year. I wasn't happy. The first ingredient is garbanzo bean. Then it's got potato starch, tapioca flour, whole grain sorghum flour, and fava bean flour. So if you're making breads, I mean, there's a vanilla coconut pound cake on the back of here. If you're making bread, it's great. It's great for waffle bread. It's great as batters. It's great in gravies. If you want to use it to thicken for a gravy, it's great for anything like that. I can't personally say that I would use this for making a cake. But for other things, I do use it. I do use it for anything that calls for garbanzo bean, and I do use it for making, you know, breads and stuff like that. So that's my example of garbanzo or chickpea. Same thing, chickpea flour. Coconut flour, and again, for those that get stuff from me that have issues with nut allergies, these are not open. They live in my freezer. They're only for demonstration purposes. But coconut flour has become very popular. Coconut flour, coconut sugar, coconut milk, you've seen it a lot. And coconut flour it has the highest in fiber content. It's grinding the coconut solids. I mean, so it's got a high amount of protein also. It's a sweet flavor, so it's good for baked goods. It doesn't taste like coconut though. It doesn't taste like coconut when you use it in baking. Now, if you were to use coconut sugar, coconut milk, and coconut flour to make cookies, yeah, it's probably gonna taste like coconut cookies. But just using this, it's not. What I do find interesting about this, I used it a long, long time ago. When it first, oh my gosh, I don't even know how many years ago, when it first came out, and I made some muffins with it. And what was interesting to me is the amount of liquid it took. It took a lot of eggs to make it. So I do find that you use more liquid than you would normally use. So it's different. It acts different. It holds more liquid. And it is a tree nut. So if you have a nut allergy, and again, for those of you who get stuff from me, my products don't have it in it, but I just have this for demonstration purposes. So that's the coconut flour. And a lot of people really like coconut flour. A lot of people do. Okay, so cornmeal, corn flour. Here's my cornmeal, and it's great. Cornmeal and cornstarch are not interchangeable. They are not interchangeable. Corn flour, also known by as cornstarch, but this is cornmeal here. And cornstarch is a fine ground powder made to thicken sauces and gravies. Cornmeal is ground corn. So if you're making hush puppies, if you're making cornbread, like my cornbread, if you're making corn dogs, that's what you're going to be using this for. You're going to be using cornmeal in those things. Cornstarch, which unfortunately I don't have an example of, I use a lot of cornstarch because my flour mixes are white rice, brown rice, and cornstarch unless someone has a corn issue, and then I put tapioca in there for them. But you know what cornstarch is. It's a real light, powdery white stuff that you use to thicken gravies. That's what that is. But those two are not different. They're not interchangeable, but they are a good source of potassium and vitamin A. Corn flour is a good source of vitamin A, magnesium, potassium, that kind of stuff. Millet flour. Millet flour is one of my favorite flours to work with. This is in, I've got millet flour and anything that needs to be flaky or have that kind of a texture. So you're going to find millet flour is going to be in, like it's in my pie crust, it's in my maple cake. I've got millet flour and that kind of thing. I love millet. It's a millet seed, which is in the grass family. It's more popular in other parts of the world and considered an ancient grain, even though again it is a seed. It's gluten-free. It's packed with protein, iron, calcium, vitamins. It's got a light, nutty flavor. It's really versatile, but the big thing for me is that when I'm using it in like pie crust, it keeps it flaky. So I'm going to use it in my strudels and stuff like that because I want that texture. So that's where you kind of got to play with it. With gluten flours, of course, you cut in your fats, or you know, if you want to cut the gluten strands, and you do different things to manipulate the strands. Well, we don't have gluten, so we got to come up with different flours to do it. And there's other flours out there. There's navy bean flour out there that I have not tried. Not everything is available everywhere. I haven't seen that here anywhere I've gone in North Alabama. So then we have potato starch. Potato starch and potato flour are not interchangeable. Okay, so potato starch is just exactly that. When you chop potatoes and you soak them to get the starch out, and there's that white stuff in the bottom, well, if you dry that, that is potato starch. Okay, so that is what potato starch is. That's not what potato flour is. That is not what potato flour is. What potato flour is it's obtained by cooking, drying, and grinding the whole potato. The dehydrated potatoes is then ground to a fine texture powder. So it is different. They behave differently. Your potato flour is going to be a lot heavier than your potato starch. So you wouldn't want to make something with potato flour, just potato flour, because it would be heavier and denser. It also has more nutrition than just the starch does, but because this does not have much in the way. It's got 7 milligrams of potassium and 2 milligrams of calcium, and you know, but it only has 10 grams of carbohydrates, so low carbohydrate. But anyways, so that's the difference between the two. Potato starch and potato flour are not interchangeable, so don't think you can use either one, whatever one you want, because you can't. Okay. Peanut flour, I don't have an example of peanut flour. It's high in protein, it's peanuts. It's just peanuts. Quinoa, that's another popular flour out there I have not worked with. Sorghum flour, however, is another one of my favorite flours. I do love sorghum flour. I use this is also in my maple cake. It's a good source of protein and fiber, and it's got a slightly sweet taste, and it's smooth. It's got a smooth texture, which makes it really good for baked goods. But I like the sorghum flour. A lot of these flours, it gets very expensive if you try to, you know, if you're doing a maple cake and you need just a couple ounces of sorghum flour and a couple ounces of millet flour, and you got to buy the whole bag, it can get expensive really fast. There's soy flour out there. I don't use that. I actually don't use soy. A lot of my clients have problems with soy, so I don't use soy. I don't use Taft. I do use white rice flour. That's one of the staples in our house. So my mix is white rice, brown rice, and cornstarch, or like I said, tapioca. Somebody has a problem with corn, and it doesn't have a lot of nutritional value. It works really well in baked goods, and it works really well in combination with other things. The big thing to know about working with the white rice flour, and you'll find in your mixes, there'll be white rice or brown rice or both in your mixes, even that you buy off the grocery store shelf. The big thing to know about these is they absorb moisture differently. So you've got to let your stuff set a minute. My trick is when I make something, I preheat the oven, I make the item, and then while it's sitting there, I go get the pan, spray the pan, cut the parchment, do whatever I'm going to do, and then I put it in the pan. So I've let it sit and absorb some of that moisture. So if you buy gluten-free cookies, I think they're Pillsbury on the grocery store shelf, you take them home and make them, they're gross. We'll get them again, take them home, and make them exactly like they say on the back. Cover them with saran wrap and walk away. Come back 30 minutes later, pan them up and put them in the oven. You'll never know that they were gluten-free. The only difference is you've given the white rice flour time to absorb that moisture because it absorbs it slower. It's a lot slower than what you're used to. So, and that's true with fats too. It just absorbs fat, water, whatever, slower. So that's the big thing about working with them. but they're very versatile, and a lot of my, like the Texas sheet cake, and that's all the mix is. Now, like cornbread will have other stuff in it, beignets, but the cinnamon bread is just the baking mix, and then manipulated with xanthium gum and stuff like that. The other thing I want to talk to you about is tapioca and casavia. You hear a lot about casavia, so I got some casavia. And casavia, it's pretty interesting actually. Again, these two are not the same. Very similar to potato starch and potato flour. So your tapioca flour or tapioca starch, that one is interchangeable, flour and starch. They're made the same as we were talking about with potato starch. So they soak the roots, pound the roots, and the flour, the starch that comes out on the bottom, it dries. When they dry it, it becomes tapioca flour. This is ground root. So this is the root that's, ground and dried and ground up really fine. So this has got more, it's got more carbohydrates in it. 2 grams of fiber, so this one has no fiber, so it's got more fiber in it. It's got more calories in it per side, per quarter cup. The big thing that I love about this is you can use it for, if you're making, there's a brownie recipe on the back, and I made this brownie recipe, and it was very, 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 very good. I mean, it was excellent brownies. But then when I tried to make it for bread, it made a really gummy, just a really gummy bread. It was not appealing at all, and it didn't taste good. So there is no such thing. Let me set these aside. So there is no such thing as a 1-for-1. And you'll hear and see, like Bob's Red Mill has a 1-for-1. Oh, there's a recipe on the back. I like to try the recipes on the back sometimes. Anyways, there's this 1-for-1. If you look at the ingredients in it, with the white rice flour, whole grain brown rice flour, potato starch, whole grain sorghum flour, tapioca flour, well, and it's got xanthium gum in it, that sounds like something that'd be really great to make a cake out of. Whereas this, with the garbanzo bean, not so great to make a cake out of. This is something that you would want to make that's heavier, like a bread. So you have to look at your ingredients. But they say there's a cup per cup out there. There's really not a cup per cup out there. There's a cup per cup if you're always making cake. There's a cup per cup if you're always making rolls. But there's not going to be a cup per cup that's going to make them both yet. I thought that I had found the Holy Grail with casavia because I had heard that it would do that. But it doesn't. It doesn't. And this this is also, I've used this. And this was good. I don't remember what I made with this, but I liked it. Anyways, but it's very similar except for its first ingredient is brown rice flour instead of white rice flour. It's got oat flour and sorghum flour in it. And it does not have any xanthium gum or that kind of thing. So those are that. Now, so we talked about the flours. And you know you're gluten free. So let's talk a minute about the whole purpose of the gluten. Well, gluten is activated by moisture, and then working it develops these gluten strands. And that's why you need bread, because you want to develop those gluten strands so that when the gases expand from the yeast or whatever leavening you're using, when the gases expand, it can hold the structure. Okay? So like the Texas sheet cake's really great, but if you don't put anything, I put it in here, but if you get the recipe off the website, www.thebabbitts.net, and decide you don't have any xanthium gum, so you're going to skip that. I put it in here, but if you try to skip that, then this is going to rise up, and it's going to rise up and it'll fall. I mean, there's nothing to hold that structure. So you have to add something to it. So gar gum is what I use if someone has a problem with corn. Xanthium gum is made, and the processing has to do with corn. So xanthium gum I don't use with corn, but this is what the kind of the go-to is. Most people use the xanthium gum. And then I use psyllium husk when I'm doing breads. It's in my biscuits because it has the ability to get that rise up and hold that structure better. And to do that, you could do that with xanthium gum, but xanthium gum is gum. So the more you put in, the gummier it gets, and the longer you have to cook it. So bread that has xanthium gum in it, I have to cook to 212 degrees, 210 to 212 degrees, which normally you don't have to cook it that much, but if you don't cook it that high of a temperature, you don't cook the gumminess up. Well, you don't get that with this, but you wouldn't necessarily want to use this in cookies because it's going to taste kind of earthy. It's ceiling moss powder, and it's a great source. I mean, it's fiber. It's fiber, but in baking with the gluten-free, I find that this is really great when you're making breads, biscuits, stuff like that. Now I don't use it in my bagels because I don't want this texture. I don't want this light, airy, bready texture. I want a denser texture. So with bagels, I don't use this. I just use the xanthan gum. But if you buy the mixes, it's all already in there, and you don't have to worry about any of this because I've taken care of all of this for you. So anyway, well, I hope all this helps. And like I said, that's the benefit of buying the mixes, is all of that work is done for you. And so, website, thebabbitts.net. That's THEBABBITTS as in Sam.net. Or you can get there from www.lovingliving.glutenfree.com. That's the name of my book, Loving Living Gluten-Free.com. And you can email me directly at kathybabbitt@thebabbitts.net. That's KATHYBABBITTS @thebabbitts.net. And I hope this helps. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's what I'm here for. That's what I do. Part of what we do is not just the mixes, and I also make baked goods to order for people if they want, chocolate cake or carrot cake or lemon pound cake. There's a full list of what we offer on the website under mixes and baking. But I also do consulting. So it's what I do. Don't hesitate to reach out with a question. If you have one, I'm happy to help you any way I can. All right. Thank you. Have a wonderful night.